welcome and good day, everyone. We are glad you guys could join us again for another Talk It Over. We, of course, love doing this, and it's a lot of fun. I love being able to unpack the messages each week, especially with you guys. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't had a chance to watch the message, please go to our YouTube channel at LifeNorth.Church, hit that subscribe button, and get notifications when all the new posts, everything we have comes up, and can stay current with everything that we've got going on each and every week. But before we get going too far, we have a new guest with me here this week. This is Michaela.
Hello.
She's joining me for the very first time, so this is kind of exciting.
Yes, exciting and maybe a little nerve-wracking.
Yes, well, we don't bite, so it's okay. You should be fine.
Good.
So we are, of course, continuing in our message series, Overflow, which so far has been very good. Talking a lot about that generosity side of what God has for us and what it is to be generous. I felt quite powerful.
Yes, yeah, me too.
But before we dive into too much of that, we're going to do a little catch up here and see how kind of our weeks have been going. So for you, Michaela, how's your week been?
It's been pretty good. So we just got married, my husband, John, and I, and so it's been a bit of ups and downs of just figuring out, like, what does it mean to be married? But slowly getting more settled into this life together, figuring out, like, a routine and everything. So it's been a good week. And yeah, just working, doing some ministry stuff as Christmas is slowly rolling around, and got to see my family yesterday, so they got to see our apartment, which was really nice.
Nice.
Yeah,
I remember those times where, you first get married and everything's new and you're trying to, make adjustments for each other and living with each other, and it's a whole different thing than just being on your own, right? And having to make, give a little here, take a little there, and try to get that whole dynamic working, right?
Definitely.
It's certainly a new experience, right? And
yes, a big transition.
It is. It's a transition, and it does take that time, but I can tell you it does get a lot better as you move forward.
Good. That's good. I believe it. It's worth it, right?
It is for sure. Yeah, that Thanksgiving, having that again last week was really good. Quite enjoyed that. I gotten to spend time again with family, which was a lot of fun. We had that. We also, recently had our sponsor child. We got to do a Zoom with some of them, which I felt was, a blast. Haven't seen them in quite a few years, as all that's been going on, and so getting that opportunity to do that was a lot of fun. So thank you for organizing that for us. It was
my pleasure.
It was really good. I actually just got back from a Christmas dinner, and so I'm quite full of turkey and all the fixings. That's been that was really busy. That was a lot of food, a lot of things happening, and of course putting the trailer away for the camping season now, as that has of course come to an end. So we've had to say goodnight to the trailer for another 6 months, and hopefully we'll get to see it again sooner. But
Chris, oh my goodness, winter time sounds so long.
I know.
6 months, half the year.
I know. It seems so long, and as the leaves are changing, it's really showing that it's on its way. It is heading this direction, slow and steady, but it is getting here. But we'll take that on with snow blowers and hot chocolate, I think.
Yes, hot chocolate all the way.
We'll just tackle that as it comes. All right, so I don't know what that is for you guys. How's your week been going? But please leave a comment in the chat. Let us know what that's been for you. Maybe you've had something fun and exciting, or maybe it's something difficult and maybe you need some prayer. But please let us know, because we would love to connect with you and continue to work on the relationships that we all want to have.
Yes. Yeah.
So today's message, again, Overflow. It's been a great series. And of course, another pastor we had come in this week again, Earl McClellan, a guy, I don't think I've heard him speak yet, but very powerful, lots of energy. Really just, I couldn't get over him not having to look at any notes. He did the whole thing without really looking at anything. I was amazed at how much he had put into memory and in time to really do that, and it really brought more power because he was really focused on what he was doing, which I thought was excellent.
Yeah, and constant eye contact with everybody.
Yes, that eye contact to really drive that point home.
Yeah.
So he brought today grace. And I know we've, of course, talked about grace in different aspects in previous messages, but he really broke it down and really dove into what grace is all about. And I like how he broke the word grace into almost like an acronym. I thought that was really cool. He put it as God's riches at Christ's expense. And I thought, wow, that actually really makes a lot of sense of what grace is really all about, right?
Exactly.
It's about, he sacrificed for us, gave up everything for us, and showing us that grace, because we aren't perfect. We make mistakes. And so that to me was extremely powerful.
Yeah.
And again, his generosity and encouragement made the way for grace. And seeing that, and he talked a lot about Paul and his story, going from this persecutor to a person who preaches the gospel.
Yeah.
And having Barnabas, that encouraging guy, to really speak up for him, to say, hey, he's made a change. This guy is completely different.
Right, yeah.
So I thought that was really neat, because again, I haven't dove too far into that story specifically. And so getting a good perspective for me really opened my eyes to a bit more of that story about Paul. And
yeah, me too. I always usually like write notes on Sundays, and I just kept writing and typing away on my phone as we was talking about Paul's journey.
yes,
Because here is a guy that wrote most of the New Testament, but his backstory, and leading up to him becoming a Christ follower, like a lot of like sin, thinking he was doing the right thing, but he wasn't, and like just speaking and acting against Christians, and then having like a full like 360 turnaround in his life and proclaiming the gospel, like so many people coming to Christ because of him. I don't know, just the reminder of grace, that it's not something that's earned, but just freely given.
Yeah, I think that's where people get confused, is they try to earn grace.
Yeah.
And I have to do works, I have to act a certain way, and then I'll receive that. But really, no, it's freely given. And I think we can miss some of that.
Yes. Yeah.
A generosity and encouragement are still making the way for grace today. Because again, I think we miss some of that about being generous and encouraging to one another. And he's like, you know what? Sometimes it's just saying an encouraging word, or sending somebody a text with maybe an encouraging statement can really, change their day. And again, you may not know their whole situation, but that encouraging statement, that word, maybe, brighten their day just a bit more. And I thought that was really good. And he of course made a joke and said, guys, make a reminder to send your wife an encouraging word. She's not going to care that you have to make a reminder to tell her that.
Yeah, definitely.
I thought it was kind of funny, but I think in a lot of instances we all generally tend to forget to do those encouraging things with one another.
Yeah.
The message of God's grace reaches people on pillars of generosity and encouragement. And again, just reinforcing that whole idea of generous and encouragement, and what that looks like to be doing that, and that grace that's involved with it, I thought was excellent.
Yeah, and it's not just about being generous with like your resources and your finances, but also with like your words, with your time, and just investing in people's lives.
Yeah, and that's another side of it I think people can get hung up on, is they think, I have to be generous with my money. That's where I have to be generous in, but it's not all about the finances. There's ways you can be generous to everyone without maybe having mass finances to do generous givings in that sense.
Right.
But those words of encouragement can certainly change that inner talk for people each and every day. And I think they're just as important as maybe a financial generosity. They can make a big difference for those people.
Definitely.
So our scripture today is found in Romans 5 verses 8. But God demonstrates his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. And it's true, we were still all sinning while Christ died. And just that powerfulness of that grace coming through, of it's given to us even though we're still sinning, I think is just extremely, extremely powerful.
Yeah, sometimes hard to fully understand. Like,
it is.
It's funny, actually, my word for the year for 2022 is grace.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, I don't know what this means, Lord. And as I've been, I guess, going through this year, as we're almost coming to 2023, I've just been, I guess, encouraged and convicted to think about grace as like me receiving grace from God and also from others too. And from that, like kind of like this whole overflow idea of like overflowing from me receiving that grace into other people's lives and showing that grace and that love.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. That's so good.
But it's hard. It is hard.
That is so good. All right, so we're going to dive into some of these questions here, and we're going to pack this message just a little bit deeper. So for you this week, Michaela, have you seen God's grace this week? Maybe some area of your life, or maybe you saw it in somebody else's life. Has that come up for you at all this week?
Yeah. I think one instance that comes to mind was a couple of days ago at work. I don't know, I just woke up in the morning and was feeling kind of emotional, had a bit of a breakdown, and just needed a little bit more time before starting work. And my manager was super like understanding and said like, take the time that you need, and then like you can start your work day just when you're ready. And I think just realizing like being real and honest about where we're at, even though like it's in a workplace, a professional setting, knowing that we're still human and we go through really just all kinds of different things in life. And having my manager being understanding and supportive was really helpful. And that was a display of God's grace for me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's great when you can have a workplace that can work with that and understand that, that it's not all just professional, that you do have that personal side where they can offer that grace of take your time so when you come back, you're refreshed and ready, instead of trying to struggle through everything and just, not necessarily making a mess of things, but just not, being at your peak performance in that setting, right?
Yeah. How about you?
Oh, I think this week it was more for me. I seem to be very scattered in the brain this week. Forgetting things, not remembering to do stuff, and just having the people around me just showing me the grace with that, and understanding that, I'm a little scattered this week. I'm not always that scattered, but forgetting those things and just not being on the ball on everything. That was very helpful this week, that people were very understanding about that, and we're picking up a little bit of the slack here and there where things I was dropping or forgetting. So that was an excellent part of this week for me anyway, and being able to see that and know that these people are showing me the grace that I need at this moment, and then I need to remember that when they're having those days, that to show them the same grace, and be able to help them through those days when things are difficult and forgetful, and be able to just work with them to get them through that time as well.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. Yeah, I think it's great having people in our lives that can be understanding and realize, especially when they know what's going on in your life, that could be causing you to feel a little like out of focus or just a little all over the place, and just people being able to speak into your life and say, we get it, that's okay, and then encourage you to, I guess, take your next step, whatever that looks like, or do that thing that you forgot to do.
Yeah, exactly. Or even help you with that thing, whatever it might be, right? So it's been good. So it's been good to see that, and I got to continue to remember that I need to do the same when people are struggling in areas, right? So, all right. So let us know, guys, in the chat. Have you guys seen that grace this week? Has it been shown to you? Have you shown it to others? Let us know in the chat, because I know we would love to hear what those stories are, and just, again, connect a little bit more. Again, Pastor Earl, the power he brought was just outstanding, I thought, this week. Lots of enthusiasm, just very, very focused on this idea of grace. So, being he was so powerful, is there a part of the message that you found very impactful this week?
Yeah, I think as we were just talking before about him unpacking Paul's story, I don't know. I think like I'm a perfectionist at heart.
Okay.
And I think, I always have to have it together. It always has to come from me, my performance, my ability to do things. And seeing how God like provided Paul, who had just become a Christian in Damascus, to then like preach the word, was not from him, but was clearly from just the Holy Spirit. That reminder that it's not it's not up to me to do things. Of course, there's skills and there's like experience that God has given me.
Yep.
But ultimately, like, it's God that I need to lean on for that strength, for sometimes even it's just words to speak to people. Like, I don't know what to say in a conversation. But just kind of moment by moment, trusting and relying on God and knowing that He is perfect and that He has everything that I need. And it's okay that I fall short because it's expected.
Yeah, it's going to happen because, we aren't perfect. And I know we all want to be perfect. We all try and strive to be perfect. And yet we're not. And we all have faults. We all have hang-ups. And those things can cause us to, change our perspective on ourselves, that we're not performing enough, or we're not, living up to what's people's expectations, right? And so, it's, it really to unpack that was excellent for sure.
Yeah, and just the fact that like Christ met him where he was at on his way to Damascus, and I was just like, wow, like that's what God does with us. And I don't know, I think just that the idea of that love, that it meets us where we're at, like just as we are.
Yep.
We don't have to come in and be this perfect person, and going back to perfection, because that is my tendency. And just accepting that love, like, I don't know, it just leaves me in awe sometimes. That's how much our God loves us. It's just like we don't have to deserve it to have it.
Yeah, so good, so good. I guess for me, it's similar. That story of Paul really drove home to me this idea of how dedicated he was to getting rid of Christians and thinking he was doing the right thing. And just like, as Pastor Earl said, he's trying to stomp these guys out, just completely get rid of them. And this guy's going to travel like 160 miles on a donkey, on foot, to go get rid of the Christians.
Right.
I'm like, this guy was dedicated to what he believed was correct and true. And just to me, that just like hit me. I'm like, wow, like so dedicated to the point of like, we'll do literally anything to get rid of them. And we're on the other side of that. We're going to do anything short of sin to reach people for Christ. He's doing everything in sin to get rid of people for Christ. Right? It's kind of it's completely backwards to what we of course believe.
Yeah.
And to see that story and how he was met by Christ on his way there and was struck blind, where he now couldn't do anything. He needed help from everyone.
Right.
And then understanding, the other guy, hey, you go pray for him. Nah, I'm not gonna do that. I can believe that. I wouldn't, I probably, I'm like, this guy's come to kill me, and you want me to pray for him. I can understand why that would be a difficult situation, right? I would be in the same boat. I don't think so. But no, it's certainly a strong part of the message for sure. For me was just how dedicated he was on getting rid of Christians, and then that 180 to how dedicated he was to preaching the gospel and just not being afraid and just preaching the gospel. Certainly, was extremely moving for me.
Yeah, definitely.
So continuing with, of course, this idea of grace, what does it mean to you, and how is your definition similar or different from God's definition of grace?
It's a great question. I always think of grace as the same thing as forgiveness. So someone does something wrong and then you forgive them. And grace is so much more than that. Like, I don't know, I think about a couple verses that I've been thinking about this past year. And one of them is like, nothing can separate us from Christ's love. Like neither angels nor demons, nor life nor death. And just thinking about like the love aspect of grace, which makes sense as we were going back to like Romans and talking about like God loved us so much, and like in our sin, Christ died for us. And so I think just bringing in like I love people so much, but sometimes I'm not always willing to be gracious. And why is that? Maybe because I feel justified. They did something wrong, they hurt me, so now I'm going to hold that against them. But I love that person. So why wouldn't I extend that grace?
I hear you, yep.
And also just thinking about like the whole idea of this battle's not against flesh and blood. but against evil principalities and kind of that side of grace, and knowing that I'm here to build relationships with people. We're gonna make mistakes. We're going to hurt people. But why am I surprised by that when that happens? Like when people are imperfect, or when I'm imperfect. And so I think God is reframing how I see grace, of it being like Christ. Without like Christ's death and resurrection, like that wouldn't have been possible. And also knowing like it's not just going to come from me. I have to lean in on God and the Holy Spirit to show me and give me that grace.
It's such a, I find it to be such a difficult switch between grace and mercy. I tend to seem to get those two mixed up because they are so similar, but yet different. The idea of this grace and extending that and being grace filled, and in the same sense somebody wronged me, and so I need to hold on to that. And for me it eats me up inside. It makes me more bitter than it does better, of course. And so the idea of grace and God showing me that God could have been bitter with how much we sin, but he chose better, and Christ came and died for us. And I don't think we quite grasp the whole idea of exactly how important that sacrifice was, and how meaningful it is. I think we kind of lose a bit of that, and how significant it is to what we need to be doing each day with all the people around us, and extending that same grace that no, we don't want to be bitter, we need to be better, and we need to extend that grace that they need just as much as we do.
And it's just a better way to live.
It is.
I think about moments where I just stick in that bitterness or that anger or resentment, and honestly it doesn't make me feel good.
No, it doesn't.
And it doesn't help like the other person who may have wronged you, like they may not feel that bitterness, but I don't know, the grace piece of that, like there's a sense of release and freedom and healing of like just because I have been forgiven, and God has been gracious to me, I want to extend that to other people. And so I love this whole idea of overflow. Like it has to come from within. We have to feel loved to be loving. We have to accept like the grace in order to be gracious.
Yeah, for sure. Because for me, growing up was very, very different. It was always somebody wronged you or this. You hold on to that, and you're going to hold on to that until something comes along, and then you'll settle it. You'll make it even, right? And that's not how God intended it. That's not what grace is about. And living like that, it changes how you operate day to day. Generally more bitter, generally very just not pleasant, and very easy to anger, at least for me. And so that whole shift on understanding God's grace, what was given for me, changed me, and like, okay, I can't hold on to these things. I can't keep that because it just hurts me. It's not hurting the other person, it's hurting me. And so I need to be graceful about just extending that grace and like, okay, this happened, but it doesn't define me. It doesn't, it's not about it, and I need to just let that go and move on. We only have a finite amount of time and that we're here, and to live bitter and angry, I don't know, that seems kind of silly to me.
Where's the peace in that?
And certainly after understanding the grace and being able to extend that, it just seems to live more peacefully, just more calm, more collected, more understanding with everyone around us. At least I find that anyway.
Oh, I agree 100%. Yes. And even just thinking about like us, right? And God sees what we're doing, knows what we will do, and yet still loves us because we will continue to be like sinners and like have shortcomings, but still loving us, still having a plan, a purpose for us. Again, still can't fully comprehend that. I don't know if I ever will at the end, until like the end of my life or once I'm in heaven, but
exactly.
like just I don't know. I think the way that Christ exemplified like how we're supposed to live, it was just like very different. And sometimes being different is hard because there's norms, there's acceptable ways of doing things, or even just like habits and tendencies that we fall into, and then trying to do like the opposite of that is really hard. It is.
It's very hard, especially with all the external pressures from social media outlets, things that we see and have around us all the time, and even down to the people that are around us can be pressuring into try to not be grace-filled, be angry, be upset, and it can certainly it's certainly hard to go against the flow, the grain, and actually really stand out as Jesus did. It takes work. It's hard. It's not easy because it's not what society tells us we should do. And so it's certainly a battle. It is. It's a battle.
Yeah, and one worth fighting.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so can you share about a time when someone encouraged you, and how did that encouragement grow your faith?
Yeah, I love this question. I think it was a couple weeks ago. I was leading like a team training, and also we were just starting volleyball. My husband and I, we joined like a sports league with our friends.
Yep.
And so both of these things were very new to me. I'd never led a team training it's been years since I've played volleyball. So I was extremely stressed and nervous. You could ask my husband. So I just had a breakdown like a few hours before all of this happened, just thinking like, what am I doing? I don't have what it takes. What if the communication piece of the team training doesn't go well? What if I fail at volleyball and make us lose? Like all of the negative thoughts just came to mind.
Yep.
And I just sat just bawling my eyes and like saying, I don't want to do any of this. And so thankfully we took time just to like sit and talk about what I was feeling, the thoughts I was having. And my husband John, like he just was very intentional about speaking truth into my life and reminding me like, you know what, these are new things, but do your best. And also you're around friends, you're around family, like people who love you.
Yep.
So there's no pressure to perform and be like your perfection. That's not expected. And also the reminder that God will equip me and prepare me for both of those things. And so I really appreciated that encouragement and just trying to have that mindset going into new things, especially that I don't have to be perfect from the get-go, or really I don't know if I'll never achieve perfection, but I can get better at things. And it's sometimes rocky when you first start out. But then you just learn and you grow.
Yeah, I hear you. That negative talk that you can get going in your head, that dialogue, it can shift your mood in an instant and really change everything that's going on and really shut you down really quickly. Certainly been there and have definitely had that in different times, of course. It does come up. For me, probably, I'm sure there's been something more recent, but I'd say the biggest encouragement for me was about 5 years ago. My son was, of course, I've talked about this before, but my son, of course, was born, lots of medical complications, lots going on, lots of stresses. For me and my wife, we're living apart for months and trying to figure out what this new life, this new routine is going to look like with all this medical stuff. And we were able to get home and trying to figure out what it looked like to be at church. Where does my faith sit? Where do I fit? What I was doing, I couldn't do anymore. I was asked to step down from that, even though I still wanted to do it. And so that was a difficult moment. And then really trying to realize, like, do I fit here? Does this even work for me? Do I even believe this anymore with everything that's gone on? Right. Having a difficult time seeing where God was in that whole situation. and where was God? What's working? Everything seems to be just crumbling and falling, and not seeming to have any positive input. And so, coming back to church for a little bit, it was my wife would go, I would drop my son off, and that would be it. I wouldn't actually even be there. And so Carolyn came up to me and she gave me some encouragement about, maybe serving on the Life Kids where Emmett is, and what does that look like. And I thought about stepping back from Life Kids, and she said, no, it's okay. You may not understand, you may not know what you're doing or where you stand with things, but being here on a Sunday and serving is excellent, and encouraged me to continue to serve even though I was unsure of where I stood. And that encouragement really changed where my faith stood. Being there, being around the people that were believers, having that influence around me on a weekly basis really changed the direction of where I was heading. And so that was able for me to really grow and move through Life Kids and start leading Life Kids, not just kind of sitting in the back corner, actually leading some of these kids. And it was an amazing transformation that I didn't realize was really taking place in my heart until way later. But without that encouragement, I don't know if I would have, where I would be now. I don't know if I'd be here doing this. I honestly, I don't know. I don't know where I would be. So that encouragement for me was really big. And at that moment, that's exactly what I needed. And so
that's powerful.
Really thankful for that. Because it definitely changed my direction for sure.
Yeah, and we're glad that you continued with that commitment of serving, even though it didn't make sense, even though it was a difficult season. You could have just withdrawn
exactly
completely from church community, church serving, and all of that. But seeing the reward of continuing to give, even if it wasn't everything you initially had before,
yes.
Capacity wise, all of that, God still honored that.
Yeah, and it's and I wonder, if there's places and people around us that we need to be listening to God, because we may be that encouragement for them where they are where I was.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to take those moments to really just listen, because God may prompt you to be that encouragement. As Pastor Earl talked about, sending that encouraging word, or a few sentences of something that's encouraging. That might be the turning point for someone like it was for me. That little bit might be the direction, the push they need to continue to push on over turning away.
Yeah, and we're glad that you stuck with it. And that you continue to be, leading and being a part of our church family.
Yeah, it would have been a very different road for sure. So yeah, those encouragements can certainly make a difference for everyone around us. And so we want to be, make sure we're doing that, encouraging one another, because we of course have seen both the importance of that and what that can do to really change our moods, our directions, and how we are. So I'm going to challenge everybody this week, send that encouraging message. It may just be a one word, thinking about you, hope you're having a great day. I challenge you guys to do that with somebody close to you. And, it doesn't have to be long, but just try it. I'm sure you'll make somebody's day and maybe change their whole outlook, even just for that day, to something maybe a bit more positive.
Definitely. Yeah, something short and sweet can make a difference.
Yes, it certainly does. So we are actually at the end of our time today. It's been a lot of fun. I of course enjoy unpacking these. I hope you've had some fun today with us.
I have. The time flies when you're having fun.
It does. So we of course want to thank our tech guys behind us, of course, making this all happen each and every week. Because without that, we wouldn't be here doing this. I want to thank you, Michaela, for joining me for the first time. I hope we can have you back again.
I'd love to be
for
back.
Another one of these amazing Talk It Overs. And of course, we want to remember, whoever finds God finds life.